In order to open, though, I'd like to just have you relax a bit, but I'm taking, let's get yourself a towel, or I have this very soft blanket. I just want to have a tiny bit of minimal support into your lower back. So as you can see, this is very small roll, and it's a very soft, cushy blanket that I have. So something similar, or if you have a bigger blanket, only roll up a portion of it, and then just sit in front of it and lie over it so it'll be side to side, horizontal, and just tuck it into the lower back so the buttocks are on the floor. And it should sort of be this like feeling, you know, not super compressive, not something you'll have to deal with, but something you can, you know, honestly relax into. And then as you let your legs relax out, let them open a bit so the hips can relax. So whatever width that is, and wherever your arms are most comfortable, you know, sometimes just at the side, oftentimes you can put them over the head and just stretch the arms corner to corner so the shoulders can relax as well, but find that position. You may want a little something under the head just for softness, but try to leave the curve of the upper spine alone. So I'll just give you a little time to get settled into this. And I'd like to open just by saying, you know, something just very simple about this this process that I do understand that we are all in at some level and in different ways. This process of taking in so much information, and whether that is information about your health or your relationship to the world or so-called spiritual teachings, at some point, I feel like we can get a bit overwhelmed and a bit overloaded, that there's just almost an unlimited amount of opinions and viewpoints and perspectives. And even when you come into something very specific like yoga and these non-dual teachings of yoga, you know, all of the words and all of the perspectives. And at the end of the day, that's really all it is. You know, anything that you are receiving, listening to, is at some level, it's just the universe being fractaled into someone's perspective and opinion. So the simple suggestion is to allow yourself the time and allow yourself the opportunity, for it truly is an opportunity, to be able to sit in silence and stillness with whatever questions arise. And even if it's not even a question, even if you just suspect that you have possibly been collecting ideas and collecting perspectives and collecting viewpoints, and they may be solidifying into belief systems. So questions, ideas, belief systems that you have, there's always the opportunity to just sit quietly in stillness and silence. And one of the beautiful things about genuinely coming into this place is that then we can really start to observe who it is that is asking the question. Who is the questioner? And my recommendation is to sit with that as well, to bring as much compassion, if you will, to the questioner. Who is the one needing to answer this question? And this is really the foundation. And even though I often go off on these tangents and it's this and it's that, the foundation, if you will, of this particular approach to your body and to your mind and to your heart is stillness and silence. And really, at its most basic, and simple, and its most profound, meditation is nothing more than not wanting anything from anything. So you just be able to sit with what is, to trust in your cells and your bones that everything is perfect just the way it is, and allow the stillness and the silence to just simply become pervasive. This sutra is from the Wahu Jing, the teachings of Lao Tzu. Nothing in the realm of thoughts or ideologies is absolute. Lean on one for long, and it collapses. Because of this, there is nothing more futile and frustrating than relying on the mind. To arrive at the unshakable, you must befriend the Tao. To do this, quiet your thinking. Stop analyzing, dividing, making distinctions between one thing and another. Simply see that you are at the center of the universe and accept all things and beings as parts of your infinite body. When you perceive that an act done to another is done to yourself, you have understood the great truth. When you perceive that an act done to another is done to yourself, you have understood the great truth. When we truly then begin to relax into stillness and silence and observe with compassion the questioner, then we simply allow the questioner to begin to dissolve. This is really and truly the beginning of our meditation, with no separation from the one who is questioning and the question, and a simple pervading and saturating of the stillness and the silence into our sense of So let's come on up nice and slowly. Any sense of relaxation, any sense of reverie, and moving into this inner quietude. No need to disturb it. We just try to move slowly and gracefully from posture to posture, just continuing just to sink in. And again, this idea of this meditation, or really, I think any meditation, is just not wanting anything from anything, but to just sit with what is. So what I would like to do to begin, you can either use the smaller bolster if you have one. If you don't have the smaller bolster, then I just folded up a blanket that is pretty much the same height and the same length. So either one will work. I just want to elevate the left leg a little bit into the left hip. So as you're sitting with the legs open, take the right one and bring it in towards your body. So it's roughly parallel to your body. And then bring that blanket or the small bolster in front of that right leg that's already bent in. And then just take the left leg and put it on top of this blanket or bolster. So it's just a little bit of elevating. So we're just sort of changing the range of motion of the angle here just to, well, you'll see, I don't have to explain to you. And then you may want something up front. It depends on if you're really restricted in the pelvis, really stiff in the lower back. We don't want the strain of the weight of the upper body to make us feel unsafe or distracted. So if that's the case, pull, blankets or bolsters up front so you can really slow down and control the relationship between the weight of the torso, the skull, and then what's being targeted or triggered in the body. So this process of entering is always a delicate one because we don't really know what's hidden there. The stresses and the tensions and the contractions move around, they tighten up, they misalign. So really let the entry into the position, into the body, really, we're not entering the position, we're using the position to enter the body. Just do it very intuitively and slowly. Bring as much awareness to the weight of the head that you can to let yourself draw into the neck and the shoulders. And then find a position where you feel safe, where you can be still, and just allow yourself an overall sort of wave of relaxation into the body. And we'll just stay here for a while. And even with the visceral sensations or the technical details of being in the asana, same thing. The body tends to trigger the mind, the heart tends to trigger the mind, and it's just insatiable in terms of this analyzing and dividing and questioning. So the same thing applies at a very practical and physical level. As soon as this onslaught of questions or concerns or divisions, speculations, whatever it is, let yourself keep relaxing into stillness and into silence. So it's ultimately, it's not the body that we're questioning, or the mind, or the heart. It's the one who is questioning. So the openness of this stillness, the openness of this silence is where we get to observe the questioner. So even if it's at the level of, oh, I'm feeling this and this, don't allow your mind to be preoccupied. Certainly, if insight is to appear, it will appear. The mind is the intellect, I should say, is a genuine faculty that we can work with and use, but we don't need it to dominate or be overly concerned with it. We want to stay at the level of deep relaxation, not wanting anything from anything. And allowing this capacity that we have, which is really, it's just awesome, this capacity that we can observe. We want to allow that sense of observing great clarity, great spaciousness. Because once we relax into that observer, we get to observe whatever it is, without getting entangled in it. And this is the key to sitting in this silence and sitting in this stillness, is to observe the chatter of the mind, the discomfort of the body, the layers of the heart, without getting entangled, and see that there's a lovely rhythm of whatever it is for you arising and dissipating.
Good. So let's come on up from here. And then take your, either your small bolster, or if you were using a blanket, roll the blanket up. Yeah, so this will be a little more of a roll than we started into the lumbar. Again, it should sort of approximate the height of the smaller bolster. And then just let the legs relax out over the roll and place the roll under the knees, really at the width of the roll. That's why I was suggesting it be the width of the small bolster. So it's just, not quite hip width, but not quite a full straddle. So just place something under the knees and open the hips up a bit. Yeah, so this will prevent us from doing a full straddle, but also we don't want to be hip width and have the blanket sticking out on either side. So just a nice support under the knees. And then the same thing, just allow the forward bend to continue in a very mindful, soft, kind of melting kind of way. And again, I can't really emphasize enough, being aware of the weight of the skull. And sometimes it's extremely subtle that we just want to hold that head up so we don't feel the contractions and the discomfort in the neck. But indeed, we want to feel the contractions and the discomforts in the neck. And you can pendulate with this. If it gets intolerable or unsafe, come back out, withdraw a little bit. But the compressing and the leaning into it is exactly what we want. We're not really in this practice moving away from discomfort. We're actually interested in what it's holding. What is it? Why is it there? And let me just go back to something I said. I don't want to pass over it, unexamined, because I think it's rather important. Is that really honoring that the intellect is a genuine faculty that we have. It's extremely valuable. And I think sometimes in the teachings, the mind becomes the enemy. Yeah, the mind becomes the distraction. The mind becomes something we have to suppress and quiet and manipulate. No, not at all. The intellect is extremely valuable, and it's extremely creative, and it's a gift to have it. Yes, and there's so many things that we can do with it. What we're suggesting from this perspective, what we're suggesting from yoga, is to simply take some time and relax your involvement with the intellect. Don't try to use the internal dialogue to untangle the internal dialogue. That's a trap. But allow the internal dialogue to certainly be there, but relax your habits and your need to get engaged, entangled with it. And this sometimes is a very gradual process, just as you are relaxing into the body, the breath calms down. It's almost a losing interest. It's like, okay, there's the internal dialogue, but I have a choice whether to engage it or not. And this is a time I'm choosing not to. I'm just simply, that's a level of relaxation. I'm choosing to relax my entanglement, my engagement with this internal dialogue. And then just allow, seep in, relax, soften. Okay, so let's come on up from here. And we're going to just get into the shoulders a little bit before we come back to this forward bending. So I'm going to show this now. I'll use my big bolster, but again, if you don't have one, just build up something to this height. We're just going to sort of let the shoulders drape off the end of it. But I just want to show you what we'll do with the arms once we're in position is I'd like to try
interlocking the fingers and pressing the palms forward. This will be over the head, over the face, and let them fall back over the head, trying to keep the elbows straight. This just works the outside of the arm, some of the muscles in the elbows in a different way than if we just let the elbows hang and dangle. And then you can kind of play with that. You can let it go, or you could bend the elbows or whatever. But the way that I want to set up for this is taking some height, whether it's a bolster or a couple of pillows or a couple of blankets, and just let's begin by resting the shoulders on this height here. Yeah, so rest the shoulders on it. I just want to be able to see. And then you may want to have something prepared for your head here, since the shoulders are so high. This is kind of dangly for the neck, yeah? You could just let it dangle, but that could be a bit precarious. So, you could bring a roll or something for the head. And then I basically have my shoulders on this bolster. That's good. And then I'm just letting them just kind of drift off a little bit. Yeah, so I'm not going to come way into the mid spine, no, and have the shoulders off the bolstering. I still want the shoulders on, but just at a nice, comfortable position. So when you relax the head back, there's not a lot of backward bend here. We're kind of supported up the spine, a little bit, certainly, but it's more to give height to the shoulders. Yeah. And then once you're snuggled in here, you'll interlock your fingers, like I said, over your face. So you're watching the fingers here interlock, and then just turn and press both palms to the ceiling. Try to straighten elbows if you can. Yeah, I know these are, wrists, elbows, shoulders, very, very interesting joints. And then when you're ready, just slowly, and I'm recommending very slowly. If you go too quickly, the elbows are just going to want to bend, and too much tension too quickly. So try to keep the fingers interlocked, try to keep the palms facing outward, try to keep the elbows straight, and then just find a nice position. You don't have to let all the weight go. The shoulders will invite you over time to open up and down. Yeah. And then, of course, if it becomes unsafe or it's not tolerable, either bend the elbows or release the fingers that are interlocked and just let the elbows, the arms go to a safe place. And as always, just always feel free to be intuitive with this. This is complicated. Like I said, wrists and elbows and shoulder girdle. There's just so much ligamentation and unresolved stress and tension. So really use the position, use the weight of the arms just to kind of play and lean in and lean out, and just maintaining an open-ended curiosity to how your body is holding this tension and what it may want to reveal to you. We're not so much interested in yoga in how it got there. That's in some ways more of a therapeutic exploration. The origins of our, how our body's holding traumas and stress. We're just more interested that it is there and it has a way of revealing to us. So what is the revelation of these resistances that your body is holding? And sometimes they're, direct, verbal linguistic insight, but very often they're not. And this is why my suggestion to relax into stillness and silence is to just let really just let the language of the feminine and the right hemisphere communicate with you. It's very, very beautiful to start to balance that out with the intellect. So if you still have the arms over the head, let's relax them. So just put the arms anywhere that is most relaxing. We'll let the body kind of, especially the shoulders, we'll let them regroup a bit. We're going to do it again. And before we go back into the shoulders, while we have especially the upper chest open, I would like you to synchronize your breathing in this way, and just do this at your own pace, because everyone's capacity will be different. But what I would like you to do is take a long, slow, deep inhale, and inhale as much as you possibly can. And when you reach the limit of your inhale, take in 1, 2, 3. 3 more. Just keep breathing in, and then hold it for 1, 2, 3. And then the same thing with the exhalation. Exhale as long as you can. When you think you've exhaled completely, just count 1, 2, 3. Keep exhaling for 3 counts. Hold it for 3 counts, and then allow it to come right back into the inhale. So the fullest inhale you're capable of, and then just keep pulling air in for 1, 2, 3, and then hold it for 1, 2, 3, and then go back to the exhale. So just see if you can do this for even 3 cycles of this would be good if you can stay focused on it. The end of what you think is the end of the breath, which it's not, keep exhaling for 3 more counts, or inhaling, and then hold it for 3 counts, and then release it into the other end of the breath. This is a very slow, precise, felt sense of the breath expanding, noticing your range of motion on either end of the breath, and appreciating that hold, that retention, and how spacious that can be. And so wherever you are, let's do 1 more. So a deeper breath on either end. I don't know which end you're on, but as far as you can go, as far as you can go, and then keep breathing for 1, 2, 3, and hold it for 1, 2, 3, and then let it go to the other end. Again, as far as you can go. What you think you're assuming is the end. You can breathe a little bit more. 1, 2, 3, and then hold it for 1, 2, 3. Good. And then just let your breath go back to a calm, relaxed breath. And if you're ready, let's bring the arms back over the head one more time. So second time, let it be intuitive. What I was suggesting was to interlock the fingers, press the palms up over the head, palms facing to the ceiling, and then just let the arms slowly go back over the head. And we'll hold it for about the same amount of time. And feel free to continue to experiment with this breathing. It can be very, very slow, but it's a very worthwhile endeavor to see where you believe your limit is with the respiratory diaphragm, but just how much air you take in and how much you expel. And to expand this capacity, emptying out and filling up is just incredibly, it's incredibly therapeutic for the body. Good. So we'll keep the arms over the head. Let's release the interlock of the fingers and just let the arms kind of go where they will. You may want to bend the elbows a bit. You may want to stretch the fingers out to the corners of the room. You may want a little movement. Yeah, so there's just enough, just the weight of the arms can take you into this, just amazing complexity of ligamentation in the shoulders and the neck and just really throughout the whole body. Good. So you can relax your arms now. And good to put the feet on the floor and very slowly let's roll off of this bolstering. And we're going to go into the forward bend, but let's just take a few moments to let this all relax. So put your body in a comfortable position, just so the shoulders and the arms can relax and they can feel a certain tingling. And another reason to do a breath like we just did, where we're kind of easing into the edge there, the range of motion, the resistance, is because we want to explore. We're really investigating. Just like as we're investigating resistance in the joints and the muscles and just the body in general, we're also investigating resistance in our breathing. Yeah, so a normal breath, and I just mean normal, what's normal for you in terms of free of the resistance, is the lungs just fill up to their capacity and it just feels delicious. It feels life affirming. And the same thing with emptying the lungs. It feels like we're releasing tension and toxins and whatever it is we're holding. And there's a beautiful rhythm when the breath is resistance free. So we want to examine that. We want to examine, is there resistance in my actual breathing? This is a very, a very deep study. And it's often why when we cultivate stillness in the posture and there's no preoccupation with the mind or the body, we bring the awareness to the breathing more and more and more subtle to see what's there. Is there resistance? Is there the beginning of something that I'm being invited to examine? Okay, so let's come on up then, please. And this time we will bring that left leg in first. Yeah, because we did the right leg the other time. And we will bring either your folded blanket or your small bolster, and we'll put that leg up on the bolster, just a little slight support, though it's not really support because it's creating something in that right hip, which we want, and in the piriformis, etc. So set that up. Let the low back relax. Bring as much awareness to the weight of your head as you can. Take your time and just move in nice and slowly. And I do think this is it's a very interesting idea, this idea of untangling the intellect. And I think one of the things that, we're really untangling is just the way that the intellect can create its own sense of self-importance. The mind, the ego, the personality, and what's really funny, what we're doing is we're untangling the mind's need to dominate everything in our life, in our world, in our relationships, and let it be in its proper place. And it's kind of funny, really. It's humorous that really the most important thing is that we simply be, just simple beingness, and having the intellect in its proper place to use it when we want to use it. So one of the purposes of creating spaciousness in the body, letting the preoccupation of the body soften, is we get to relax then the other layers. We get to relax any contractions of the heart and any of these, preoccupations of mind and ego and personality. And that's as just to add to that, as brilliant as your intellect is, as brilliant as the mind is, let's say, is that it's still finite. It's still, one of its primary purposes is to create this sense of a separate being. But the reality is that you are an infinite being. You're not separate. And this is why I say I think it's funny, because the most important thing is to simply be.
Good. So let's ease up from here. Although I do understand how alluring this pose can be. So if you'd like to just stay here for a couple of days or so, feel free. But if you're going to move along, then come on up. And then same thing, whatever you're using for that support, just open the legs to the width of it, put it under the knees, maybe shake the hips a little bit. And then let's come forward again. And just feel any of that tingling, any of this sort of shift from the tightness to the openness. This is all just what we would call energy, passive movement of the body. It's all lovely to explore. And I think part of the, exploration, I was talking about this a little bit in Sunday's class, is that we don't really need this faculty of the intellect to know ourself. We don't need a belief to know ourself. We don't need this collection of ideas. We don't need someone's perspective to know ourselves. We don't need anything to know ourselves. And this is oftentimes what makes it so tricky to know yourself, because there's always a need to turn it into something, which it's not. And how do we really be comfortable with this idea that it is not something? And so this becomes the yoga, if you will. This becomes the yoga, is this need to stop creating this separation, to think everything outside of ourselves, we either need to move towards it because it's going to verify ourselves, or move away from it because it's denying ourselves. When at some level, we are all of these things, but we're none of these things. And so the yoga is just a way for us to sit with this understanding. And it's not even understanding, it's just a sense that we are not separate, and we can't find this separation.
So let's come on up from here, please.
And then once you're up, let's lie down and we'll take a rest before we move on. So just make yourself comfortable. And so it's a very good practice that I'm suggesting. We have the routine, if you will, or the rituals of putting the body in and out of positions and exploring sensations and whatever else that evokes. But also we have the opportunity to take anything that's being shared. So basically what I do is I just take a very, 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 very thin slice of my understanding of yoga and just share it with you. But not to be digested, not to be taken and formed into some philosophy or idea, but to just sit in stillness and silence with it and see if there's a question about it, if there's a resistance to it, even if there's an acceptance of it. Who is it? Who is accepting? Who is questioning? So we get to observe at that level of process. What I'm saying really is basically meaningless. It has no meaning. But the relationship that you cultivate with it this has great meaning because it's just as oppose is used to just simply investigate. There's no way to get it right or wrong. The same thing with what we're taking in. And we can do this for anything. Anything that comes our way, we can just go into a place of stillness, of silence. Even if we're moving quickly, even if we're engaged, we have this capacity to internally go to this space of quiet and stillness. And then see, what is the questioning? What is the analyzing? What is the relationship? And can I go to the questioner, observe who is questioning, who is observing, and just let that start to dissolve? Okay, let's come on up, please. And we're going to roll a blanket. And as you can see, I have a cat on my blanket, so I'm not sure to disturb. I think to disturb a cat that's resting it's illegal in some countries. So I'm going to have to do it anyway. So please do not report me to the cat police. So we're going to have to put you someplace else because you're disturbing our yoga here. Uh-oh, he doesn't like it. So roll up a blanket, and I'm rolling it up so it's just a small roll. This is going to determine how we go into the mid back. This is just a lovely backward bend that we can hold for a while. So if you roll it up too big, it's maybe too much compression in the lower back. I'm going to use it with the small bolster, which I'll put over the roll. So there's just be a little lump here, if you will, a little compression of the bolster into the lower back. So the end of it's going to touch the floor. Again, if you don't have the small bolster, I folded a blanket to replicate the small bolster. The same thing, just put your blanket over one end of the roll. Yeah. So again, you'll sit on the floor and we'll place this lump, if you will, hump or lump, into your low back. So the blanket that's rolled is going side to side, and then the little bolster or the blanket that you folded up is going from the lumbar all the way up to the upper spine. So sitting on the floor, I'm showing it here with the blanket, so it works just as well. So kind of soften in, go to your elbows first, make sure that, yeah, it's all good back there, down there, back and down. And then keep the feet on the floor till you get the head back. If the blanket's too small, you may want something under the head, yeah? So you want the head to rest comfortably. Then when you feel, you gauge like, okay, this is acceptable compression. I feel good. It's appropriate for my lower back. Then and only then, keeping the buttocks on the floor, let the legs relax out. Yeah, really make sure it's not too much. So I'd rather have it towards the milder end than the more moderate or extreme end because of the amount of time we want to spend here. And I want to do just a little bit of visualization as well. So I want this area to feel like it's receiving, it's receptive to the compression, but it's not resisting the resistance. So there can, over time be a bit of softening around it. So settle into that as best you can. And we do want to make sure that we, take this idea of the depth of the pose, the amount of discomfort we're feeling, that it's appropriate. And sometimes it's really important, I still work with this, to be really honest with oneself. So anywhere along the line, anywhere in the length of the position, you're always invited to make an adjustment, to come down a little bit, to tweak something, to make it so for you, moment to moment, the amount of compression that's being received is appropriate for you. And this is, no one else can tell you what this is. And this is why it really is a sensitivity. And then hopefully, if we do that properly, that's no longer a concern. And then we sort of open up into that sort of spaciousness where, there's really nothing to do but relax and allow yourself to drift into this, more vibrational, energetic state of the body instead of being concerned with the mechanics of the body. Allow yourself to open to creatively visualizing. So just allow the images to be creative, just open around the edges. So imagine that you are an ice cube. The ice cube represents your mind, your ego, your personality, all of your fears and preoccupations, all of your self-imagery and your self-identification. This is you as an ice cube. And then imagine that there's a
a crystal clear pool of perfectly warm water. And this pool of water is infinite. It just goes on eternally and forever. And this pool of warm, crystal clear water is your true self. This is the vast space of awareness, pure consciousness, if you will. So imagine yourself as an ice cube being gently lowered into this warm, crystal clear water of awareness. And just very slowly, there's no rush. There's nothing you can do to facilitate the process, but just allow yourself to melt. And just know that the water of warmth and clarity and consciousness and awareness and the water of the ice cube, this has always been, always will be the same water. And what we're allowing to melt are just these layers of self-identification, these stories of our self, the ego, the personality, the mind. So allow the warmth of the water to melt the ice cube of the illusory self. Now visualize that the ice cube is the physical body itself. Any places of intensity or density, anything that feels contracted or uncomfortable. And the pool of warmth, the pool of awareness is now the breath. So allow the ice cube of the body, the density of the body to begin to melt into the warmth and the aliveness and the gentleness of your breathing.
Take a nice slow inhale breath. And again, right up to your limit. Just fill the lungs a little bit more than you have been doing and hold it at the end. Feel that aliveness, that fullness. And then allow the breath to empty and really feel that emptiness at the end of the breath and a little bit more than you have been expelling. Let it really empty out. And just do this for a couple of cycles. Feel the fullness of the inhale and feel the emptiness of the exhale. Good. So you can bend your knees and put your feet on the floor so you feel stable, especially in this lower area. And whatever intuitive movement feels appropriate to work out anything that's built up over time back there. So sometimes it's good to really check in first before you just kind of pop out of it. And then whenever you're ready, you could, if you'd like, sometimes it works just to elevate. This is such a low bolstering, you could elevate the hips and pull everything out, or you can roll off of it. But we will take another rest here. So come on out and find a restful place. So this is one of my favorite sutras from this Wahoo Jing. So I'll share this with you. Intellectual knowledge exists in and of the brain because the brain is part of the body, which must one day expire. This collection of facts, however large and impressive, will expire as well. Insight, however, is a function of the spirit, because your spirit follows you through cycle after cycle of life, death, and rebirth. You have the opportunity of cultivating insight in an ongoing fashion. Refined over time, insight becomes pure, constant, and unwavering. This is the beginning of immortality. So this is, I'm going to read it again because this is, what I'm experiencing when I read this is what I've been talking about, is that not necessary to question this, to analyze this, to try to understand this. This is a beautiful sutra to just sink into stillness and silence and see if there is anyone questioning this, and just observe your process at that level, because it's so ethereal and refined and just incredibly beautiful what Lao Tzu is saying here. So I'll just share it again and just really let yourself relax at that level of just receiving and allowing it to just weave its way in and through your vibrational essence.
intellectual knowledge exists in and of the brain, because the brain is part of the body, which must one day expire. This collection of facts, however large and impressive, will expire as well. Insight, however, is a function of the spirit, because your spirit follows you through cycle after cycle of life, death, and rebirth. You have the opportunity of cultivating insight in an ongoing fashion. Refined over time, insight becomes pure, constant, and unwavering. This is the beginning of immortality. And just to say, I do consider myself very fortunate that my personal collection of facts is not that large and impressive. So maybe I'm a little closer to immortality, huh? Okay, so stay where you are, or if you are curled up or in child's pose or doing something other than just lying flat on your back, come flat on your back, please. And we're going to keep both shoulders where they are, particularly the left shoulder, and have something, either the small bolster works great for this, or roll up, don't roll it, but fold up a blanket. Yeah, so you have it so you can just wait. I want to weight the twist so it brings a little depth and doesn't allow it to open up. So lying flat on the floor, keep the left shoulder grounded, bring the knees up to the chest, kind of pull them in a bit. And just trying to hold the knees up, bring both knees over to the right. So we'll come into a reclining twist. And don't worry if they don't go all the way to the floor, or if that shoulder comes up a little bit off the floor, but just try to keep them up. And then take the blanket that you folded or your small bolster and just put it over the top of that left leg. Yeah, so I have it sort of toward from the ankle right below the knee. So it provides a nice weight. Try to let that left shoulder relax back down. Try not to let the legs open too much. That's what the weight is for, in addition to providing some compression into the twist, which when the legs open, we typically don't have. The other thing is place your head where the neck is nice and comfortable. So sometimes we do the twist and we put the head in a place where it's contracting the neck muscles a little bit. So let the neck muscles relax. Let that weight draw you in a little bit deeper. And we'll stay here for a while.
And I do think it's, it can be very, very valuable to, to simplify this practice as much as possible. Because ultimately, the only thing that we're actually exploring is what you are experiencing. And this may sound very obvious and self-evident, but we want to take that just one step further because we want to notice what we are almost automatically and habitually laying on, superimposing onto what we're experiencing. So the gap between the direct experience and then almost simultaneously layering on whatever, all sorts of stories, all sorts of justifications, all of that knowledge, all of that, collection of information that we have. So this is one of the reasons we take our time. This is one of the reasons why in these poses, we take out our magnifying glasses and look closer to what this experience is and see that tendency. It's a very natural tendency. It's just our programming. So to just allow the experience itself to arise. And this is what I was saying earlier, stepping back into the observer, stepping back into the stillness and the silence, and who is the one, where is the labeling and the defining and the stories coming from? And do we really need them? And is there something to benefit from observing, investigating the very nature of the experience itself? Because really what I'm discovering is it's not what we're experiencing that is awesome and wondrous. It's the fact that you can experience it, the nature of experiencing. And we get lost in experiencing this or that and this and that, and it just triggers this whole conditioned response. So allow your exploration to be as simple as possible at this very basic level of experiencing. Okay, so you can take the weight off and straighten out those legs and come back over to a straight spine. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of time here to wiggle around and pull the knees up to the chest. If you want to bring the knees up over the head, you could do that into a full forward bend. Let them go back and forth. Just take a little time here. That was a nice long twist and the added weight. So just work it out before we do the other side. And then if you're ready, but feel free to, forward bend or wiggle as much as you would like. But if you're ready, we'll do the other side. So this time we'll try to keep that right shoulder on the floor as much as possible. I like to start by bringing the knees up towards the chest so this can be as deep as possible. Then just let them go to the side. They're going to want to open out if you can avoid that, just so you get the weight on. So then we'll put the weight, this time I'm going to use the bolster. Yeah, that's a little heavier than the blanket. And then if that shoulders come up, no problem. It can come up a bit, but try to keep it on the floor. Then if the knees open a bit, that's fine. Let them settle to where the weight will keep them stable. So we've got a nice supported twist with this additional weight. It's just lovely. And then we'll stay here for a bit. it's one of the reasons that yoga is so clear about the investigation being about experiencing, is because that's all there is. And this is an invitation of yoga to explore directly. This is not a belief system, not a theory, nothing mystical or esoteric. And so we can approach this in two ways. We can approach this from the Vedantic, which is pulling all your awareness inside of yourself, your whole inner landscape. And then at the level of your imagery, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your direct somatic sensory experience, what is it? What are you experiencing? What is the nature of that experiencing in relation to all of those definitions? So that's the inward facing path. That's the Vedantic path. The Tantric path, the outward facing path, is to do the same thing with whatever appears in your field of reference, whether it's the wind, whether it's color, whether it's sound, whether it's smell, whether it's touch. What is the fabric of that? Are you just experiencing it and not adding a whole story onto it? So we get to see directly, experientially, that at some level, when we melt away the stories, the habit of defining, the habit of labeling, all we're left with is experiencing. And the invitation of yoga is to explore that. That's the primary investigation. And this is precisely why the ice cube can melt, because the ice cube ultimately is only water. The density of the ice cube is a story, it's an illusion, it's a dream. And we begin to think the story and the illusion and the dream is real, so we hold the contraction of the personal self, of the separate self. But the reality is that we're simply the warm, clear, infinite water of spacious awareness. Good. So if you have some weight up on the legs, let's take it off. Let's straighten out the legs. Let's come back to a straight spine. Let the knees relax here. Let the lower back relax. And we'll just take a rest here before we move on. And one of the reasons that I enjoy the metaphor of the ice cube is that an ice cube melting in warm water is such an incredibly gradual process. So, very seldom, maybe in the mythic literature of the yoga, that these awakenings happen spontaneously and we go from just being our normal neurotic self to a totally enlightened being. Those are just mostly in the stories. But it's a gradual process, this melting of the personality and the ego and the self. And the beautiful thing about being okay with the gradual process is that along the way, we get to keep what works for us. Yes. So part of being a functioning human is the mind and the ego and the personality can be very useful. It can even be fun. And we can learn a lot. So this is part of the investigation at this level of experience, is there's some things that no longer work, they're outdated, or maybe they never did work. And so how to let those parts of ourself, if you will, just melt away and then refine and yes, just refine and come into a place of greater subtlety with yourself, of greater awareness, that we're able to even do that behavior we thought was solid was really just ice, and I was able to shed it and melt it and let it go. So more and more, we're just simply functioning with what is working, what is part of our process of awakening. And this is the beauty of moving slowly. This is how yoga was received, slowly, quietly, moving into the joints and the bones and the heart and the muscles and the mind and the spirit, slowly with great consciousness. So there's no rush. It's often like, some of my favorite experiences are when I'm, in a dream that's very interesting, almost a little bit lucid, and I sort of wake up a little bit, and then I go back into it and fall asleep, and I sort of wake up, and it's like I'm taking, like, oh, that was interesting, I want to remember that. That was a little scary, I don't want that. And then the process just keeps unfolding to then it's like, oh, I'm awake. Wow, that monster was not real. That situation was not real. And so but it's beautiful that we have the option. The yoga is just giving us this tremendous container to explore what that means for us, our own sense of awakening. Good, so let's come on up, please. And this time we're going to go a little bit beyond. We're not going to put anything under the legs. So just open the legs out to just whatever is a nice wide straddle for you. Yep. And then we're just going to come forward with that. So just a nice dragonfly pose. And you can come to your forearms or your hands, even if you can relax the shoulders, or you can bring, whatever bolstering front to just support, as much support as you need. If you are coming down to the forehead, don't squish the nose on the floor. Put something under the forehead just to support, so you don't. You just don't want to squish the nose.
Good. So let's come on up from here.
And just a nice, simple adjustment will just from here, just bring the soles of the feet together. It's good to have a little distance. That's really up to your anatomy, but don't just respond to the habit of bringing them in. Like, this is where you think it should be. So if this tightens up your hips and your knees, what's the point? Let them relax a little bit. So I just like find a place for, my skeleton that feels relatively open, and then we'll go back into the forward bend. So soles of the feet together. If you need something under the thighs or the knees, pull some blankets or bolsters under there, and then just relax down. And that also, really speaks to the idea that this slower, quiet yoga really emphasizes it and tries to cultivate that all of this is really unique to your body. So at the level of the skeletal system and the fascial system and the muscular system, they're all quite unique. So to really honor that, to really use just the general geometry of the practice to, make these interesting suggestions to your body, but it's the quality of the listening. It's the quality of this, really respecting that the body has this whole mechanism of communicating tremendous intelligence to you. And this is what I was hinting at earlier by listening to the breath. When we calm and we relax and we soften and we really listen to the way the breath is moving in and out of the body, there's a tremendous amount of information there. The same thing when we move the body in a way that we're just leaning into something that's not comfortable, pain. That's the teacher. The pain is not to punish us. It's not there to, it's there to get our attention. Something needs to be cared for. Something needs compassion. And something wants to reveal something to you. And it's the same thing with mental anxiety. Mental anxiety is a mechanism to allow us this deeper intelligence that we don't have to untangle it. This is what I was saying earlier. Trying to untangle the mechanism of the mind is the trap of the mind. But how to listen to that mental anxiety, that hum of tension in the nervous system, and see what it's trying to share with you. See, what are we engaging in mentally or emotionally that we don't need to be. So the system itself, the emotional guidance system, the mental guidance, the physical guidance system is beyond brilliant. The yoga is just really learning how to listen to it and how to follow it and experiment with it.
Good. So let's come up from here.
And let's go back to legs open. So pretty much same place you were. If you want to open them a little wider, bring them in a little bit more, your choice, but we'll come right back into where we began, legs open in a nice dragonfly straddle position.
I said earlier that it was, it was almost funny that really all we need to do is, come into this place of simply being. But I also think, once we have this realization, through all of the, and the teachings are beautiful. It's like reading poetry. Nothing wrong with the teachings, but we have just as humans volumes and volumes and volumes of mystical and esoteric and philosophical teachings. But it's almost funny that at some point we realize the truth that we really are our own best teacher. And I think sometimes it's just so sweet to just sit with that and have so much compassion for ourselves that we're in this process of really honoring that and recognizing that. And it doesn't mean we don't, access the teachings when we need to or want to, but ultimately sitting quietly with oneself, sinking into a place of stillness and silence and just listening is the teacher, is the guru. You are the guru.
So let's come on up from here and let's lie down for a few moments and rest. And possibly this goes without saying, but this whole distance situation is a continuing experiment. So I know that you are capable of taking care of yourself, but at this point in the class, and I understand that the 2 hours is lengthy, always feel free to go into your final shavasana or any other counter movements that you need. But I'm going to offer one more asana before I close. So let's take a rest. But if you're feeling the need to go into your shavasana at this point, that would be up to you. Okay, so let's come on up, and I'm going to actually offer two choices at this point. So, and they're kind of different. So if you're still with me, then you can take a blanket and fold it up to a nice big square block pad. So it would mimic like one of those cork or wooden yoga blocks. So that would be the first thing. Yeah. And what we're just going to simply do with that is elevate the pelvis up on top of it. So no more lower back. So I'm bringing just the broadest part of my pelvis on this. And then I'll just relax my upper body down, keeping my feet on the floor. Then I'll relax my feet out. A couple of things you can do along the way. You can either just stay here and just really let it kind of pull. And it's so lovely for the pelvis. So this alone is fine. At some point, you could put the feet on the floor and go back into that sort of twisting position, either with some movement or not. You could stay there. Another thing that's really nice for a hip opener is to keep one leg extended and bring the other foot up and under on the floor, under the knee or the thigh there. So the weight of that left leg will pull in. So I'll just leave that up to you though. Yep. Because I'm going to show something else. So that if you choose, or if you would like to go more into a backward bend with the knees bent, a supported saddle pose would be next. And this is either or. Yes, I already said that. Oh, no, I have to disturb a cat again. Come on. So what we would simply do, if you have the big bolster, it works perfect for this. And you could even put something under it if you want to try bending the knees back. You could put it up, or you could stack your blankets and pillows so we support the whole body, even the head, yeah? And then the knees are bent back, and then tuck it in so it's supportive, and just bring the body over this. And like I said, if you get here and it's like, my knees, I'm not sure, my quads are tight, then you could try bringing this up. This will alleviate a good part of that, yeah? So when we were in person, I used to walk around with extra bolsters and put them under here so we could bring this up. Or you could just build it up with the blankets and pillows. And then good to, if you're coming back, relax the head and relax the arms. So lovely to sort of re-stimulate the production of synovial fluids, especially in the knees. So either go into your final Shavasana and drift off to wherever you drift. Come into the pelvis on the pad, legs relaxed out, or bend the knees back and support your upper body with some bolstering for a supported square pose. Relax. Feel. Listen. Your tissues are breathing. Your cells are breathing. Your brain is vibrating with life. Your heart is vibrating with light.
Everything is perfect, just as it is. Please feel free to stay in whatever position you're in. Feel free to come out and come into Shavasana, or if you would like to sit up with me for a few moments, and we will close. I thank you. I love you. I bless you. Namaste.